Let's finish up working with our forms and talk about how we can style them so they don't look so bad, right? This is my form. Um, I made a few changes to it, so if you watched the previous video, let's take a look at some of the changes. So what I did was I put the field set tag, and the field set tag basically is a way to kind of make little dividers in your forms. And you'll see here I put an ID of customer info, and so that's kind of where that legend goes around it as well. So you can have multiple field sets per form. Since this form is pretty small, I've just got the first, last name, address, city, state, and zip code, and then the submit button. I didn't really need to have more than one field set. Okay, so let's talk about ways that we can style a form. Because forms are relatively complex with all the different types of inputs that you might use, uh, using CSS with these different inputs requires a little bit different syntax. So let's take a look first and create some simple rules. I'm going to create one for the field set itself. And again, the field set is what creates this border around here. So what I want to do is I'm going to specify like a width of 50% for this form. And what I'd like to do is I'd kind of like this form to be sitting in the middle and like all of the inputs to be kind of on top of each other with the exception of city and state. I'd like those to be right next to each other. And then I want like the join today button to be kind of big and in the center. Oh, I forgot one more thing that I did was I took out all the labels and I put placeholders in for each of these items because I think the form looks better with placeholders instead of the labels. So that's up to you what you want to do. Okay, so for the field set I've got the width of 50%, and then I'm going to put a background color in here. So you can apply a background color. I'm going to go with orange. And then I don't really like the look of that border around my field set, so I'm going to change the border to none. Okay, and as soon as I do that, you'll notice that now it's just kind of like a flush orange box. Okay, then because I don't like the legend sitting on top of this and kind of being halfway there, I'm going to put a padding top of 50 pixels, which gives me a little bit of space here. And then I'm going to do some positioning here so that I can move that legend up a bit. So I'm going to change the position to relative, and you're not really going to notice much change right here, but once I put my information in for the legend, I think you'll see what I'm trying to do here. So for the legend, and remember the legend is this thing that says customer information, I am going to change the font a bit. I'm going to keep it with my Arial sans serif, and I'm going to change the font weight to bold. Let's see, you can kind of get a better view of what it looks like. And then I'm going to change the position on this to absolute so that I can position it within the field set box. So you can see already what I'm doing. It looks a little bit better. I'm going to push it in a little bit as well. No, I don't think 18. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just go with, I gotta get it perfect, right? Alright, so I'll stay with 12 for now. I might need to change it a little bit once I get my inputs. Okay, so to get these inputs the way I want them, this is where the strange CSS syntax is going to come. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put input, and I'm going to put a square bracket. Okay, that is the underneath the curly brace. The shift of the square bracket is the curly brace. And then I'm going to say type equals text, and that needs to be within quotation marks. Okay, and that is going to select all of the inputs with the type of text. And so that would be the first and last name, the address, the city, and the zip code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of padding inside the box. Okay, so you notice when I do that, see how they're small? As soon as I put the padding in, they definitely get a little bit bigger. So we have some typing room. And I'm going to put some margin on here of 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, and 25 pixels because I kind of want it to get pushed over. So it's already starting to look a little bit better here. I'm going to change my font family to Arial so that it meets the consistent font of my design here, and I'm going to change the font size to 1.2M because I want this to look like something people will want to, you know, write their information in. And then I'm going to change the width. Now watch what happens here. I'm going to change the width to 300 pixels, and what that's going to do is it's going to make this field a little bit wider. Okay, so I'm trying to kind of make this box and have it all work the way I want it to. Okay, so from here you'll notice these all look pretty good, but now I've got this like select box that's sitting out here. Now let's take a look. This is not considered an input. This is considered a select tag. So I can just create my select tag, target it by using the select HTML tag. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So it's going to be Arial sans serif, and I'm going to keep the size exactly the same as the other inputs, so it's starting to look a little better. What's the difference that you notice between this one and this one? This doesn't have any padding applied to it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and put padding of 5 pixels. And oops, I didn't do that right. Like, why is it still looking strange? Okay, so I've got my padding of 5 pixels. This all looks great, but I want the city and state to kind of take up the same space as the address and zip code. I mean, the zip code, that's kind of big for zip code, right? We only need a couple characters for that. So what I'm going to do, because I want to make my city a little bit different, and I'm going to take a look, I already have an ID of city in here. So I can target that ID by putting a # city in here. And the only thing I'm going to do that's different is I'm going to change the width of this to 225 pixels. And see, that looks pretty nice right now. So I'm pretty happy with where things are. Let's see. So I like what I've got so far. I do want to center it. So I'm going to select the form itself, and I'm going to put a margin left of, let's see, I've got this form at 50%, so I'm going to put like a 25%, and so that will give me 25% on the left side, 25% on the right side, and 50% in the middle for the actual form itself. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this except my button. So that is another input type. If you take a look at the HTML tag, input type submit. So I need to select it exactly the same way I did this, but instead of type text, I'm going to put type submit. So let me put that in here. I kind of like to organize everything by where they show up. So type equals submit. And let's see what I want to do here. Okay, so I am going to do a margin left of 125 pixels, and let's see, maybe a little bit more, 130, and I want to do a background color to make this kind of pop of red, and then I want to do a border none again, Okay, so far it's looking good. It's too small though. So I'm going to change my padding. I'm going to put 10 pixels and make that button a little bit bigger. I'm going to change my font to my typical Arial, and I need to change my font size 1.5 em. Okay, now my button looks a little off center. It still looks a little off centered. Still, this is the part that you can really spend hours doing to make everything look exactly the way you want it to be. Okay, and then I'm going to change the color of the text to white. I think that looks pretty good so far. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now let's see what happens. Again, this is working with my web server, so it's probably not going to do anything at this point. So I put in all my information, I click join, okay, and of course nothing's going to happen. Oh, let me refresh. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to tell you is that you can make it so, this is one of the great things about HTML5, is that you can make it so that something must be required. So for the first and last name, if I want this to be required, that means they cannot process the form until they actually put the information in. You can just put the word required. So you have to think about it. So I definitely want a first and last name, and actually I'm probably going to want to break these up into first and last name because we don't really collect data this way. Maybe the address and city isn't as important, city, state. Maybe I just, I mean, I probably need to add a couple more things in here because honestly, it's not very logical what I'm asking for. If I do an input type of email and do name, email, ID, email, let's see, oh, and then I need to put my placeholder. Placeholder equals email address. Okay, now, why is this coming up so awful? Because this is a new input type. This is an input type of email, and that means I need to come up here and basically use the same thing here for my input type email as well. And then it'll look a lot nicer. And then I can put a required in here as well. So let's say the required information that I have is first and last name and email address, and then I might want to put like a little asterisk to kind of make sure that people understand that these are required fields. Okay, so now watch when I try and submit the form on a required field. If there's nothing that has been input, it'll say please fill out this field. Okay, so then if I put my, doesn't really matter if I leave these other things blank. I'm going to leave the zip code blank, and then let's see what happens. Me. Okay, so because I use type email, it's going to say please include an @ symbol in the email address. Me is missing the @ symbol. So if I put me@me.com, then I can click my submit button. If I click, oh, that's loading my wrong one here. If I put my information in and don't put anything in email address, it will say please fill out this field. So that required is actually helping us out quite a bit. Okay, well, this is all that I have for styling my CSS of my form. Again, there's lots of different things that you can do, and actually now I'm looking at this, it's kind of I see that this padding looks a little bit shorter than the other padding, so I am going to do something here and maybe make this a little bit bigger and make this a little bit smaller. Okay, it looks okay. Again, these are the things that you can spend so much time working on. to get them just right, and they kind of make you a little loopy. So okay, so have fun. If you have any questions, feel free to comment and or send me a message, and I will do my best to get back to you. Thanks. Bye.